Parted ways with Mike Vrabel after 6th season, and his name is already floating around if the Patriots move on from his former coach, Bill Belichick.
All right, let's get a check-in on the storm. It continues to soak the state. Some of the heaviest rain that we will see left in the storm is just south of us now. So actually right around Baltimore from Annapolis north, D.C. north even, the rain is letting up somewhat, but that will not be the case for all the way through, like, say, midnight. We're going to see another round of some heavy rain. Also, high wind warnings continue through 1 a.m. We've got high winds mixing down from the upper levels. That's going to create, again, peak wind gusts in the 50s and even 60s out there. So be ready for that and more flood concerns. We'll talk more about the big picture on the storm and when it clears out coming up in the next hour.
All right, Wyatt, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 6 o'clock, Governor Wes Moore unveils his plan to address the crime crisis in Maryland, the key takeaways and whether that will be enough to make a difference. And we continue our weather alert coverage as the storm system pours down on the region. Our team of reporters are out in the elements tracking the latest conditions.
We're tracking our powerful January rain and windstorm as it continues to push into Maryland.
We are also following some breaking news tonight. Baltimore County Police investigating a deadly police-involved shooting. And Governor Wes Moore unveils his new crime plan, what we can expect from the upcoming legislative session in Annapolis.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 6.
Well, we, of course, are on weather alert tonight with heavy rain and wind gusts throughout our area. We are taking a live look at conditions across Maryland. At the top of your screen, you'll see live looks at Annapolis and our storm tracker, and on the bottom, conditions at the Inner Harbor, and a live look at our weather radar as we track the storm system moving through our region. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Mary Bubala. We have team coverage of the severe weather affecting our area. In a few minutes, Rebecca Pryor joins us live from our Len Stoller mobile track, and Jessica Babb is live with conditions in Annapolis. There's some big flooding going on there. But first, we're going to go to meteorologist Wyatt Everhart for the latest on this storm track. Wyatt.
Mary, the storm really a triple threat. Ironically, in January, not a winter threat at all in terms of snow or ice, but heavy rain, meaning flooding in low-lying areas, coastal flooding due to the easterly wind fetch, and high winds, which could easily bring down large trees, branches, and yes, even some power lines over the next several hours. So we have a little bit of a let-up in the rain right now in the immediate Baltimore area, but heavy rain already moving south, or north rather, out of Charlottesville points to our south, seeing heavier rain that will move in our direction. So our flood warnings continue right through just past midnight tonight as we continue to pick up maybe another inch of rain on top of the 2 and 3 inch totals we've already seen today. And the biggest concern probably still just the high winds over the next several hours as we have high winds aloft mixing down to the surface. That's going to create problems more than likely with branches coming down. And certainly we've had problems at the Bay Bridge and travel points around the state with all the wind. We'll talk more about when things let up with the storm coming up in just a few.
Wyatt, thank you. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor continues our team coverage tonight. She joins us live from our Len Stoller mobile truck. Rebecca, still a lot of rain, but it looks like the traffic may have eased up for you.
Yes, looks like the traffic is finally clearing up, but that rain still coming down. Mara, we are on 695 South currently. We are actually on our way to Curtis Bay, where a viewer has just sent us in a picture of a massive downed tree that is tangled in some power lines. It is the first report that we've had of toppled trees so far this evening, but with all of this, all day steady rain that we've been seeing, you can see it's still coming down currently. That combined with the looming high winds on the way could be a recipe for disaster for our trees, our power poles and lines. So we are headed again to the first report of storm damage that we've heard so far, but expecting more to come. In the meantime, you can see roadways, they remain wet, and drivers, they are continuing to take things slow. And again, as you said, Mary, clearing out for the most part. So if you don't have to be out on the roadways tonight, stay home. It is much safer. Mary and Kai, back to you.
Rebecca, thank you. Well, Fox 45's Jessica Batt completes our team coverage. She joins us live from Annapolis with how businesses are dealing with some pretty intense flooding already. Jessica.
Yeah, you can see behind me Dock Street. It looks more like a river right now. It just completely flooded out. Several businesses over here, they have sandbags trying to prevent water from getting into their business. We've even seen kayakers out here. That's how much water this area is getting right now. But businesses have been preparing. They've been getting their sandbags and they've been gearing up for today's storm.
We are gearing up for a flood.
Gearing up and getting ready.
We only moved here a few months ago, so this is our first real actual storm. And already my dock, we're on the water, has, the water's already touching it. So I figured I would grab some bags and see what happens.
Residents and businesses in Annapolis are bracing themselves.
We can expect the waters to be about 5 feet above average.
Thank you so much.
Annapolis Emergency Management handing out about 150 sandbags today.
The pumps are normally good about 3.4 feet above average, so we will see well over what those numbers will be. So this whole area where we're standing right now, probably will see some floodwaters.
We'll have probably close to a foot in the shop tonight.
While some businesses are closing shop early, others are staying open.
This is just another day. We're not scared of flooding.
I think being on the water with having trees so close to the water, I'm worried that they'll get waterlogged and then the wind will knock them over.
And tomorrow morning, we'll just wait till the floodwater recedes, come down, mop up, disinfect everything, and hopefully get a little business in tomorrow.
Police have also closed off some other roads around this area here in Annapolis. BGE's on standby, ready in case they're needed. But again, if you can avoid being on the roads, you should do it. If you have to be on the roads, more is to come tonight and into tomorrow morning, so be extremely cautious and safe. In Annapolis, Jessica Babb, Fox 45 News.
Jessica, thank you for all your coverage out there tonight. We appreciate it. And let's take a live look at the Bay Bridge. All lanes, both eastbound and westbound, are closed down right now because of high wind warnings. This has been in effect for more than an hour. And these cars that we see, this is westbound, have just been sitting there for more than an hour. We will continue to update this story and let you know when they decide to reopen the Bay Bridge, but they have closed it down in both directions because of high wind. Just a mess out there for these drivers who I'm sure are frustrated. And we are going to follow some breaking news tonight. Let's get over to Kai at the alert desk.
Mary, thank you. Baltimore County Police are investigating a deadly police-involved shooting that happened in Pikesville. It happened in the 400 block of Reisterstown Road. Now, minutes ago, Baltimore County Police held a news conference saying police approached a suspect at a gas station related to a domestic disturbance call from a hotel nearby. Police say the suspect pointed a gun at officers, and police then retreated, declaring a barricade situation. Police say the suspect then left the gas station and, quote, engaged with officers at some point. Several officers apparently fired their weapons at the suspect. Police say the suspect then sustained life-threatening injuries and was taken to the hospital, where he was later pronounced dead. Baltimore County Police have not yet revealed the victim's identity. The Maryland Attorney General's office is investigating. You can stay with Fox 45 News. We'll continue to follow this breaking story and update you on air and online as information warrants. Mary.
We need accountability for the kids that are repeatedly violating the law. I believe in rehabilitation, but I will not tolerate lawlessness.
Well, Governor Wes Moore is out with his public safety priorities ahead of the legislative session starting tomorrow. During a news conference today, the governor outlined 3 bills he is planning to introduce. The Victims Compensation Reform Act to ensure victims have services they need to move forward. The Growing Apprenticeship in Public Safety, or GAPS Act, which aims to help with law enforcement recruiting. And following the Biden administration, Governor Moore calling for the creation of a Center for Firearm Violence Prevention and Intervention to track and remove illegal guns. The governor's broad plan includes few specifics, and that's something critics are quick to point out. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost was in Annapolis pressing the governor on some of his plans.
The governor talked a lot about accountability, but what it comes down to is the governor is seemingly putting a lot of the heavy lifting on lawmakers to make his broad plans reality.
Mic check, 1, 2.
Governor Wes Moore
Good morning.
Outlining his public safety priorities ahead of the next session, with a slew of speakers standing with him, including Department of Juvenile Services Secretary Vincent Schiraldi.
I take DJS's role in promoting safety and positive youth outcomes very seriously. No one should feel unsafe walking in their own neighborhood. Hard stop.
And while the governor touts his support of plans put forward by state's attorneys like Ivan Bates and Aisha Braveboy, who were in the first row, Governor Moore not introducing their policy proposals. Instead, he's simply supporting some of them.
We need to think seriously about lengthening probation for juveniles guilty of gun crimes.
Extending the length of probation for young offenders is a key element to the Bates Braveboy legislative priority package, and another priority is changing the Juvenile Interrogation Act, calling to require defense attorneys to be present in person during questioning instead of just on the phone. We pressed the governor on that policy push.
Do you support that as well?
I think all options need to be on the table. And I think as we're going into this next legislative session, we are going to work with our state's attorneys. We're going to work with our legislative partners.
From your administration, though, would you push to support making changes to that act?
I think all options need to be on the table.
Not committing to supporting a change in the Interrogation Act. While there's a lot of talk from Governor Wes Moore about accountability,
the hallmark of what I hope to see in any juvenile justice legislation that's going to make it to my desk can be summarized in one word: accountability.
He did not offer many details on what that means moving forward.
It's always great to hear the word accountability from a Democrat. He didn't embrace legislative ideas that would actually bring that sort of accountability.
Republican Senators Justin Reedy and Stephen Hershey quick to offer reaction.
We want to hear what's going to be done to immediately make streets safer.
But there's still a lot of fluff.
The GOP pair say they are disappointed the governor's plan did not include specific legislation targeting juvenile crime. And while they both say they support services for young offenders,
we can't do that if DJS is not going out and doing its job.
Meanwhile, DJS Secretary Schiraldi continues to get the support from his boss.
If there's anyone who is up to the job, it's our Secretary of Juvenile Services, Vinny Schiraldi.
The questions are, how will the state pay for these proposals, and will the governor put pressure on lawmakers to turn his broad ideas into reality?
Governor Moore says he plans to use every tool available to him to ensure public safety. And while he says that now, again, we have yet to see the specifics. In the State House, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
And again, the session gets underway tomorrow. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost will be in Annapolis following every step of this year's legislative session over the next 3 months. Our coverage begins on Wednesday. Follow along on air and online at foxbaltimore.com. And join Fox 45 News for a Your Voice, Your Future State's Attorney Roundtable tomorrow. Top prosecutors, Ivan Bates, Aisha Braveboy, Scott Schellenberger, and Rich Gibson will join us to talk about their legislative priorities for session 2024. The roundtable starts Wednesday at 7. You can watch it live on foxbaltimore.com.
On the heels of an impeachment hearing for Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas, a trip to the border and a widening debate over the best path forward. I'm Christine Frizzell with the latest.
And I'm Wyatt Everett. We continue to track this large storm impacting Maryland and the central East Coast with heavy rain, flooding, and yes, high winds. When does it all let up and clear out? We answer that straight ahead.
And we are continuing our breaking coverage on the weather out there tonight, taking a look at conditions around our area. On the top left, you'll see a look at Annapolis. Top right, conditions out on the roads. Bottom left, the inner harbor. And on the right, it is a live look at the Bay Bridge, where all lanes in both directions are closed tonight. It's been this way for more than an hour because of high wind warnings. Let's get right over to meteorologist Wyatt Everhart with the forecast for us. Wyatt?
Mary, the storm continues to impact the state, no question, and probably for another, I would say, roughly 3 hours plus, we're going to be in kind of the worst of the storm. Precipitation has been heavy throughout most of the day, creating flood concerns, especially in those low-lying spots, as well as along the western shore of the Chesapeake from the easterly wind flow. But ultimately, we are not quite done with the system yet. Even in terms of active rainfall, the radar showing basically rain has lightened up a little bit around the immediate Baltimore area, as well as southeast into Annapolis. However, some very heavy rain still here. from Manassas back southwest into Charlottesville. So one more round of some fairly heavy rain could pick up another ½ to 1 inch of rain on top of the 3 inches of rain we've already seen. This is why we say that plus all the runoff means more low-lying flood concerns, low-lying areas, a widespread aerial flood warning continuing till just past midnight tonight. And then also the winds, the other big factor with this storm for two reasons. One, just the high winds themselves. When you have soaked tree branches, everything out there is subject to potentially, cracking, seeing some branches come down, hit those power lines. That high wind warning up through midnight. If we're looking for gusts, especially out over the open bay, to be into the 50s. The modeling here may be a little aggressive. I don't think we'll see wind gusts into the 70s, but we will see mid 50s over the next 2 to 3 hours. This wind will let up as we go toward midnight. So that is the good part. And tomorrow, just ultimately a very breezy day, but not the powerhouse winds we'll continue to see through the rest of the night. So weather alert conditions continue through midnight tonight, especially for that high wind and heavy rain, flooding in those low-lying areas as well as coastal areas such as Fells Point, Annapolis, etc., that are subject to that easterly fetch piling the water up at high tide overnight. And then power outages, always a concern. We have high wind in the wake of heavy rain. One thing we don't have with this system, any winter weather. Yes, early this morning, western Maryland had several inches of snow. That has all changed to rain, even out there at the high elevation. So it is a warm core system, if you will, but one that has brought tremendous rain. And now that easterly fetch, we still have concerns for high tide flooding in particular. Annapolis points along the bay right through the early morning hours tomorrow, that next high tide cycle. Look at the peak wind gusts so far today, gusting into the upper 40s, even 45 in Baltimore at the top of the recent hour. And that fetch is very strong out of the south and east, so it'll continue to pile up that water along the western shore of the Chesapeake. It is a big storm. We will talk about when it finally clears the area. Your extended 10-day forecast coming up.
Tonight, the widening crisis at our southern border is putting a renewed focus on the magnitude of what is needed for those already in our country and how to best respond at the border itself. These questions will loom large Wednesday over the first impeachment hearing on Capitol Hill against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Fox 45's Christine Frizzao is live on Capitol Hill with the very latest for us. Christine?
Hey there, Mary. In the last week, we've seen about 60 GOP lawmakers visit the border to speak directly with Border Patrol agents and people who live in those border towns. And just yesterday, the Secretary of Homeland Security was there as well, with some pretty big questions here in Washington about what will happen next. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas this week praising the work of U.S. Customs and Border Patrol on the front lines of what he says has been a global challenge.
It is a challenge that countries throughout the Western Hemisphere are experiencing. It is also a challenge that is, quite frankly, gripping the entire world.
And while the numbers of those coming has broken records, Secretary Mayorkas disagrees with those who say the border is open.
We are delivering consequences for individuals who do not use those lawful pathways.
But that statement seems to contradict what he reportedly told CBP agents in private, that 85% of those who arrive at the border are being released into the United States as they await their asylum hearings, with a renewed focus on how they're cared for as they wait.
If you send us someone to Denver who has to wait 6 years for a court hearing and they can't work in the meantime, we're going to need almost endless amounts of federal support.
That federal support for food and shelter, health care, and education.
If you take 1/4 of the encounters that we saw in December alone and say that those were 75,000 kids, kindergarten through 12, that somebody has to pay to educate. Guess who that somebody is? It's the American public.
The American public growing more weary as shelters reach capacity and local resources run out, while the debate plays out over solutions.
The solution is to stop the flow. The solution is to seal the border.
The chaos and lawlessness at our borders right now is not going to be solved by throwing more money at it. We have to change the open border policies of this administration.
Some Democrats calling for a more streamlined system.
Would you shorten the path to citizenship?
I think we need to clarify it. We need to make it easier.
And things are not expected to get easier for Secretary Mayorkas as Republicans hold that first impeachment hearing here on Capitol Hill tomorrow.
And Christine, remind us the key arguments we're going to hear from some of the House Republicans tomorrow.
Yeah, we expect them to go into details to try to back up some of their main points on why he should be impeached. First, they say he has refused to enforce the laws, and second, that he's misused taxpayer dollars. Mary?
Christine, live for us in D.C. tonight. Thank you.
Law enforcement officers were shot more last year than any time before. I'm Janae Bowens in Washington with a look at what needs to be done to stop this troubling trend.
More police officers were shot in the line of duty in 2023 than ever before. In tonight's Assignment America, the National Desk's Janae Bowens explains why this is happening and what can be done to stop it.
I don't know how to live without you, and I didn't ever want to imagine it.
It's been 4 months since Brittany Lindsay lost her fiancé, Deputy Ryan Klinkenbroomer of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. He died just 4 days after they got engaged.
I'm so happy I was able to love him.
He was ambushed and murdered while he was sitting in a patrol car. The National Fraternal Order of Police say 2023 saw the highest number of officers shot, with 378 officers shot in the line of duty. 46 of them were killed, and there were also 115 ambush-style attacks.
And that's very, very concerning because we're seeing cops getting attacked and shot simply for being cops.
Sergeant Betsy Smith with the National Police Association says more light needs to be shined on the positive things officers do, and departments need more funding and more officers.
We are so short-staffed, we don't necessarily have the time to attend the training that we need to keep police officers and ultimately the community safe.
She says it's going to take a multi-pronged approach to stop officers like Klinkenbroomer from being killed in the line of duty.
Now look down on all your brothers and sisters in blue. Keep them safe so this never happens to anyone else. Protect them and watch over them as they continue to serve their community.
Now, the National Fraternal Order of Police is calling on Congress to pass the Protect and Serve Act Now, this bill calls for the establishment of a new criminal offense for knowingly assaulting an officer and causing serious bodily harm or attempting to do so. In Washington, I'm Janae Bowens.
All right, let's get a final check of that forecast. You can see that heavy rain is finally going to clear out as we push toward midnight tonight. But in the meantime, high wind and flooding in those low-lying areas as well as coastal zones is going to be a problem. We do clear out and dry out as we go into Wednesday. And looking ahead, Thursday also dry. That's good. Next chance for rain late Friday into Saturday. We stay mild until we turn much colder early next week into the middle of next week. We might find some real January cold around here. In the meantime, be careful out there tonight in the rain. Back to you.
Wyatt, thank you. Finally tonight, even if you're not enjoying the cold, wet weather, some furry residents sure are. Be More Lifestyles Mark